The molten glass is held in a furnace, which is just like a bath of glass, and we can gather it onto a hollow tube called a blowing iron and then take it back to the glassmaker's chair. Using a wooden block, which is hollow, we can shape the glass into the required shape. It's a nice even round shape. We call it a parasol, which is almost like a folded up umbrella. This is a good shape so we can blow the glass evenly. The glassmaker's tools, which we call jacks, are then used to cut in the neck, and the bubble is started to be inflated with the use of pressure held down by the thumb. We use this because the first blow is like a balloon. It's more difficult to do it. From then on in, you can just mouth blow the piece. It's a sort of repetitive thing that you blow the glass and you cut in the neck, and blow the glass, cut in the neck. You can't blow the bubble out to the complete size all in one go, because basically the glass becomes unhandleable. So it's a repeated process. The jacks actually, they're like an extension of your fingers really, but they don't get burnt quite so much. Once you judge by eye that you've reached the size required for the particular piece you're making, you test it out with a set of calipers that are set to the required size. You can reheat the piece all the way throughout the making process by taking it to what's called a glory hole. This is a very, very hot chamber, which then keeps the glass at a workable temperature. Meanwhile, your assistant will be gathering a piece of glass from the furnace on a solid iron called a bit iron, and he can then bring you the stem, which is then cut off using the aid of parrot nose shears. Using the back of the jacks, you can shape the piece and make sure it's on nice and centrally. We keep going back to the glory hole. It's to keep all the pieces actually at a good workable temperature, because if the glass gets too cold it tends to shatter and fall all over the floor. Jacks here are used to cut in and to make a decorative knop on the bowl, and the assistant is used here with a pad just to make sure we've got a nice flat edge. The assistant brings you a hot piece of glass straight from the furnace, which is then just dropped straight onto that knob. The foot is then sort of spread out with the use of a pair of apple boards, which you can sandwich the glass between and just basically squeeze it out into the shape of a foot. If you look at handmade glass, you can actually see the circular lines going around it. Now, to complete the piece, it has to be transferred onto another rod called a pontil, and this is made by the assistant and brought to the chair again, and it is attached to the bottom of the foot as centrally as possible, and then another board is used to straighten the foot out so it's actually running concentric with the rest of the bowl, so the piece will stand up straight. You can then break it off the blowing iron using the jacks and a sharp tap. Once again, we return to the glory hole to reheat the end that is now going to form the rim of the bowl. As that is reheated, you can use the jacks, place them inside, and using a bit of lift and a bit of force, you can open it up to the required shape. Before the early part of the 19th century, all wine glasses were made using this technique. This is probably quite a good replica of a glass that would have been used in sort of like ale houses and drinking houses. Although we work in clear glass, we also exactly the same method used on the Bristol blue glass. When Peter and I started, we made what we could make. We could make a small jug, we could make a small vase, we could make a paperweight. I think that was about it to start with. So we made those three things and basically flogged them as fast as we could make them. And as we worked harder and harder, we became better, and slowly the range developed, and it developed with our skill, and we ended up with some local lads that we were teaching. I mean, basically we were teaching the guys. We were half an hour ahead of the guys that we were teaching. Like, you know, it was quite funny.
I met somebody in Bristol first off, before I met Jim in fact, who showed me some of their blue glass. So they've been working down here, they've been at college, and I I was really impressed by it, and asked if I could see, because they were looking for people as well. So I went to meet Jim in a pub in Bristol, and he told me to turn up on the following Monday. I got in there and started to assist him. I found it quite daunting to start off with. I was afraid of getting burnt, and afraid of bumping into somebody and causing accidents and all that kind of stuff. But after a while, you just get used to how people move around the floor, and then there was a need for more glass makers. So my assistant sort of end of things would normally be a year or two, but it was about 6 months because of the need for new people to come up and take it on.
It was what was famous. I mean, it's what Bristol sort of like, the little bit of history that carried on through the people that they remembered. So we made the Bristol Blue here because there was a ready market for it.
But in the late 80s, we realised that we wanted to relaunch Bristol Cream in a far more contemporary style. We did a lot of research, and one of the elements of the research was the blue bottle. And it came out far and away the most popular colour glass to put Bristol Cream in. We were particularly pleased about this because clearly Bristol Blue and Bristol Cream and Bristol have got connections. And when Harveys were first founded in 1796, was just at the time that Bristol Blue glass was coming into the area, and it was associated with fine dining and distinction and things like that. The blue glass came out on top in all aspects of the research. So consequently, we took the plunge and launched Bristol Cream and Bristol Blue, which was a very brave decision because historically all wines and spirits have been in either clear glass, green glass, brown glass, or black glass. So blue was something entirely new, but it's been extremely successful, and we're very pleased with the results.
Well, when Peter and I set up the company, we both immediately started arguing about what we're going to do, because we both had totally different ideas. I had an idea of a company that was making contemporary tableware, whereas Peter was an art glass maker, and still is an art glass maker, and he wasn't really interested in tableware. So I had to go and sort of learn it myself.
Well, my own work is Tiffany iridescent work, which Bristol Blue is a great carriage for all of these because the background colour's there already. You actually can melt small quantities of coloured glass and apply them to the outside of the parison, which is the blob of glass that you start with. And you can decorate the piece, hook it and trail it, move the glass around on the surface. It's like working with hot toffee or sugar, and of course very fluid. But once the piece has been decorated, it can then be blown into a form. And of course, all of the decoration expands with the piece, which is the great thing to watch. And in fact, it's only the glass blower's eye that sees that. Everybody else misses it, but it's always good fun.
I can sit down and make 50, 60 wine glasses the same in a day. But I do like going into a studio and just having a totally clear sheet and saying, right, today we're going to make something that's going to be different. You can do all these different movements to sort of change the shape of the glass. You can do all sorts of things. And you know what goal, you've got a goal. When you're actually making something, you've got a goal. So you've got to, you've got almost like a dance. You've got a routine to go through to get to that, thing. So, and if you vary off it, it doesn't go right, it goes wrong. So you're working within strict parameters, but you've got an ultimate freedom as well. And it's there, it's instant. And when it's done, it's finished, which is great.